All right. Good Wednesday morning, everybody. Hope you're doing all right this morning. Sorry, I'm on a new computer this week, and so trying to get everything figured out. So we're on Unit 35, Session 2. Unit 35, Session 2, and our scripture this week is Acts 27, verses 21 through 24, and then verses 30 through 44. So we are getting close to the end of the book of Acts. And we've got a passage that we don't really talk about that often, but it's very interesting. This is the shipwreck that Paul's involved in towards the end of the book of Acts. And it's more than just a shipwreck. It's more than just like your action movie where there's a shipwreck and they survive. It's got a lot of spiritual principles in it, and there's a lot that goes behind it. And we'll also find out that this shipwreck could have been prevented had the people listened to Paul. So, anyways, just a couple of things for us as we're studying this. Just some practical teaching points with this. First thing I noticed when I look at this passage is that, or the first principle I would say, is that God's words are greater than our words. God's words are greater than our words. See, what happens is towards the beginning when they're getting ready to take off to get out into the open waters, Paul advises them to not set sail yet because the storms were, or the seas were really choppy. There was a storm coming, and they didn't listen to him. And Paul says, "Well, no, this is not me telling you this. This is on the authority of God." And they still don't listen. And so we can have this confidence and we can have this assurance that when we speak of the things that the Lord has told us, that we can speak with confidence. In this case, they didn't listen to Paul. And they're going to find out that they should have listened to Paul, right? Secondly, the second thing that I see here is that we can easily seek our own way when we doubt God's promises. We can easily seek our own way when we doubt God's promises. So they get out to sea, waters are still choppy, and then it gets really bad, and they fear that the ship is going to sink. And so what do? They start doing everything they can to try to save the ship or save their lives. A lot of them start jumping off. A lot of them lower down the skiff, and they were going to hop into that and try to find their way to safety. And Paul has a method in which he's doing this. He instructs them what to do. All that is detailed in verses 30 through 44. That's pretty interesting. I encourage you to go back and read that. But what the men do is, instead of listening to Paul, who's now giving them a chance to save themselves, some of them turn and they seek their own way, and they say, you know what, I'm going to save myself this way, and this is how I think it's going to be done. Again, it's not Paul speaking on his expertise, it's God speaking through Paul, right? Showing that he has the power to save if they would just listen to him. I think about this might be a very drastic illustration, but you think about Abram and Hagar, right? All the way back in the Old Testament, towards the beginning of the book of Genesis, Abraham is promised a son, and he's like really old, and his wife is really old. So what does he do? He doesn't think him and his wife can get pregnant. So he says, I'll take this young servant and we'll get pregnant, right? That's not the way God had intended it. God was going to work supernaturally to bring a son from Sarah. And so I think about that, and there's countless examples in our own lives where we seek our own way because we doubt God's promises, right? And so just think about that in your life. Maybe there's a story that you can tell there that maybe will make an impact on a student understanding this. And then the last thing is that God uses humans to carry out his salvation plan. So God uses humans to carry out his salvation plan. We see this all throughout the Old Testament, all throughout the New Testament, and even here today. Like, God does good work through his people, right? Yeah, sometimes he's going to part the seas, right? But sometimes he's going to use one person telling another person, this person telling these people to do something, and that's God intervening and allowing humans to be involved in this act of salvation. And hey, even think about it today. We get to be a part of his salvation plan in people's lives when we go out and tell people about the gospel. It's not us doing anything, but it's God orchestrating our steps, God telling us where to go, and God giving us the words to say so that people might come to know him. So anyways, the story ends and they end up wrecking, but they kind of make it a softer landing. They run to a sandbar and they fortunately, most of them get out of there alive and they're on some island. And so it's pretty interesting. But praying for you guys this week. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let us know. And yeah, thanks guys. We'll see you next week.